Alright guys, so in the last video we went through and we pointed your new domain, which we're using reallyawesomesopco.com, from your GoDaddy account to CloudFlare. So if you purchased your domain directly through CloudFlare, this is where you would end up starting. So you can see at this point we don't have all of the data that was there before. It doesn't say check name servers, it now says great news. CloudFlare is protecting your site. So we now know that we can change anything from here instead of on GoDaddy. But just a brief kind of break on the purpose of this video though. So these records that we're going to change, you don't necessarily need to understand what they are yet, but when you change them at GoDaddy, sometimes it can take a very long time for you to actually see your website. So we just generically use CloudFlare for everything. It adds a lot of protection even on the free version, and it makes changing these records a lot faster. So anyways, so at this point we now have our domain pointed here. You've gone through our small piece of information regarding hosting. For most of these videos we're just going to do Kinsta. Kinsta we just feel is a very responsible host. There isn't really any major issues that we've ever had with them, and we've been using them for a long time. We do use Convisio as well, which was highlighted in that article, but mainly Convisio we use for higher traffic sites, but they're both great solutions. Kinsta is just for a beginner or somebody just getting into it, a little bit better of an experience. So once you go to Kinsta and you create an account, the thing that we need to do at this point is actually have a website to point your domain at. So once you purchase a hosting account, this is what a blank Kinsta dashboard will look like when you click on sites. You can see this is actually a break off of our agency plan. So we have sites active on here right now. But disregarding this, you see the add site button. So when you click add site, it's going to say install WordPress. Don't install WordPress. Clone an existing environment. We can ignore that. We're just going to leave it on install WordPress. We don't need to enter a domain name right now, so that's not grossly important. We're just going to call this really awesome. So I think if we do co, it's a little too long. Nope, we can do co. So once you type in the name of your site, you can just copy that and put it into the site title as well. For location, this is something that everybody kind of wonders what the right choice is, because there's a lot of locations. If you're not inside the United States, I'd say go to Google and see if there's any benefits to anything that's closest to you. But United States, we just generically choose Iowa. So Iowa's central United States. Their service center has minimal issues. It's always been fast and reliable. And when somebody's pulling your website, the difference between it being in California or Iowa, even when you're on the East Coast like we are in New Hampshire, is a couple of milliseconds. So not super important. These are all reliable servers. They're all provided by Google. So we're going to choose Iowa. You can choose whatever you'd like. This is always a safe bet. So hopefully at the end of phase one, you took our advice and you got a password management utility. This is asking you to set up the admin username and admin password. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, right? So if we go in here, you can always click create new record. So we're going to label them WP credentials. You can see we created some demo accounts for CloudFlare and Gmail and Kinsta for the purpose of these demos, so we've saved those passwords in here as well. And for Kinsta, they're asking you directly for an actual username. So we'll just kind of make a random name. This is not super important, but you don't want to choose admin or I run this site or anything too easy to guess. So we'll put the username in there, and then this password utility has a password generator. We can go in. I always just generically choose 32 characters. There's no reason for that. Just some places don't actually allow more than that, so we'll save this. So now that we have a randomly generated password, we can copy that. We'll put that as the admin password. WordPress admin email. Set this to whatever email you're using. We just created reallyawesomesopco@gmail.com. Pretty original. So now we have everything filled out except domain name. This is fine. We'll leave this blank for now just to make this a little bit easier to understand. So this information is all good. Never check this box off unless you know what WordPress multi-site is and you want to use it. There's no circumstance for anything that we're teaching where this would be needed. Installing WooCommerce doesn't really matter. We're going to go through and show you how to actually install it just in case you're using a different host. And Yoast SEO, we're not really quite there yet. So we can just leave all three of these options blank and then click Add Site. Now it's going to provision our site here. So we have a lot of sites on here, so this is what you'll see on the screen once you start typing that. And then shortly this will come up with visits, bandwidth usage, and all of these once it's actually ready for us to interact with it. So we'll just wait a minute. Okay, so it took a few minutes, but the site's all set. So from the screen we just left, you just click on the Really Awesome Soapco name. It'll bring you to the information panel for that site. So I just went through on our company account and changed Really Awesome Soapco to an account where the only thing we can see is this site. That way I can kind of show you guys the dashboards and everything that's in here. That's helpful. So once we go in here, you'll see info, domains, backup tools, lots of stuff in here, right? So domains, you'll see if you didn't enter a domain on the first screen, like we highlighted, you'll see that they add .kinsta.cloud to whatever the end of the name of the site is. So if we click open URL, you'll see a bone stock WordPress install. This is what WordPress looks like when nothing has been touched. So it's not secured. It's, they just stick it on HTTP domains, so you might get security warnings or what have you. But anyways, so we have a live WordPress site. So the next step to all of this is to point reallyawesomesopco.com to this site. And it's a little bit different on Kinsta when you are using your own CloudFlare account. So all you really do is you just go to domains, and then again, this is the screen that we start on. You're going to click on the one right under it that says domains. And when we scroll down, you'll see the temporary domain that they put it on right here. And if we click add domain, we're going to add reallyawesomesopco.com. I'm just going to copy and paste this because it's kind of a long domain. I don't want to typo it. Even if you're going to put it on www. Add just the domain without the www. First. Otherwise, it's going to prompt you and tell you that it's a good idea to do this first. So we'll go through and just click add domain and continue. This isn't a supremely long process, but it's going to ask you to put some stuff into CloudFlare right after this is done waiting. So this might be different depending on a lot of different things, but either way, something, you may have 2 lines here, you may just have 1. It's going to tell you that you need to add some records in your DNS management section, right? So we set CloudFlare up to manage our DNS records. So what we're going to do, this is txt record. So this is Kinsta trying to verify that we own reallyawesomesopco.com. So we're going to copy this first value for name/host, and we're going to open up our CloudFlare account. So now that, just making sure that you see that it's now protecting your site and live, we're going to go to DNS. So you don't have to touch anything that's here existing. We just need to click add record. And then again, this says it's a txt record. So we're going to select this drop down, which you can scroll up and down in, and there's an entry for TXT records. So for the name of the record, we're going to put the name /host, and then for the value of the record, we're going to put that under content. You can leave this to auto. We'll click save. So that's all done. So once you've done it, you just click OK, I've done it. So sometimes this can take a little bit to verify, but so when we first added this domain, we did not add the www version. So now we're going to go back to add domain again, and we don't have to wait for this process that we're waiting on finishing to finish. So now we're just going to go through and again, I'm just copying the domain so I don't typo it. You don't need to wait for that process to finish to do this. They're kind of the same process, but they run on their own, so we can do both at the same time. So we're going to add www.reallyawesomesopco.com. So we'll click add domain and continue. This one invariably can ask you to repeat the same step that we just did. See if it actually asks us. I'm going to leave these long pauses in here too, just so you can see. If anything takes over a few minutes, I'll kind of skip over it, but these are generally pretty quick. So they just added this already. We don't need to do anything else. If we did, the screen again can be different from person to person, but they're all going to be a type of record to enter in there, and it gives you instructions. So we're just going to click OK, I've done it. And then we can see here, there's a little learn more. The temporary domain has little checks next to it saying domain live. And then this one, if you click it, it just says domain verification pending. And if you click verify domain, it'll show you the stuff that it asked us to put in earlier to verify it. So we're going to wait for this to confirm, and then we'll pick up the video once we get confirmation on this. All right, so now our domain's been verified, which it doesn't look like we made a lot of progress because it looks like there's effectively what appears to be an error message here, but this is actually the expected outcome. So far we've just verified that we own reallyawesomesopco.com. So if you click learn more, it's just going to say you have to point your domain. So now what we effectively have to do is take reallyawesomesopco.com and point it to this reallyawesomesopco.com web address, because right now it's on reallyawesomesopco.kinsta.cloud. So you'll notice a little button up here. It says point domain. So if we click on this, this is going to give you records to enter. So this can be a little bit tricky because there's some stuff to remember here. Number one, if you already have a domain that's hosting a website, like if you already have reallyawesomesopco.com and you already have a website, please don't follow this step. Reach out to your hosting provider. But for those of you following along with these tutorials, this is the next step, right? So we have CNAME record 1, CNAME record 2. So if we go back here, we're going to see this A record. This is going to mess everything up. So anything that says A, if you don't have an existing website that this is pointing to with any kind of gobbledygook here, we're just going to click edit, and then we're going to click delete. Again, anything starting with type as A, so this is an A record, we're going to go ahead and select it and click delete. Okay, so now we can just go in and copy the A records over to CloudFlare. CNAME records. So you see here you have CNAME record 1 and 2. We're just going to copy a little, just an @ symbol like in an email address, but we're going to go in here and click add record. This field will up here below it, and then we're just going to go down to CNAME and paste the lat. Then we'll take the value or domain name. We'll paste that into target. For now, just to avoid any kind of issues, we're going to uncheck this so that this little cloud is gray, not proxied. It will say DNS only, and again, it will be gray. So we'll save that. We'll go back here, and then it says CNAME record 2. So this is just www dot, right? So we're adding another CNAME record, so a second one. So we're going to go back, click add record, click click CNAME, type in www dot, copy the other field, put this here, and then we're going to do the same thing and make sure this says DNS only, and click save. So this is coming up. There is a duplicate CNAME record down here, so we'll just go through and delete that. If you encounter something like that, again, if you don't have a pre-existing domain, you're really not going to damage anything by deleting any records in here. If you have Gmail set up, they're all going to come up and say MX records, and just anything that says CNAME or A records, pretty safe to edit in here. So we'll go ahead and take this second CNAME record, we'll save it. So now you have two CNAMEs, right? One's for www dot, pointing to our Kinsta account. The other one is now reallyawesome.soapco.com, also pointing to our Kinsta account. So that's pretty much it for the record setup. So now when we go back here, we can select OK, I've done it. CloudFlare is pretty fast. If you stayed on GoDaddy and you were changing those records, sometimes it can take 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. It's really kind of spontaneous as to how long that can take. But for now, we'll give this a little bit of time and make sure that it actually verifies. And in the interim, we can actually go through on our Kinsta dashboard, and there is 3 little dots right next to both of these. So Really Awesome Soap Co. We're going to click the 3 little dots next to that. We're going to say make primary domain. So this is where you need to make a decision on whether you want to use www dot or not. Most people are just used to typing in www dot something, so there's really no major impact here. There's a lot of opinions online for this, but from the over $1 billion in online transactions we've helped people host, I really see no discernible difference between using one or the other, so it's entirely preferential. We're going to use www dot, and then you always want to make sure when you're doing this, there's a little checkbox here. It says run, search, and replace after change. So click that, and we'll click make primary. Okay, so it says it's done. So now effectively we've changed it, so reallyawesome.soapco.com is pointing to our Kinsta site. So the site right here, keep in mind this was already loaded, should now be able to be accessed through your domain. So, all right, so now we can see a little check mark right here, domain live. So reallyawesome.soapco.com, the www version is now pointed to our WordPress install, reallyawesome.soapco.com. So notice we have a little not secure thing here. This is not a bad step. It's not necessary, but what's happening is we went from HTTP to HTTPS, which you don't really need to understand the purpose of that at this juncture, but it's not bad to fix it, right? So if we go back to Kinsta and you go to Tools, you should have an option for Force HTTPS right here. It's generally good if you're going to be running a commerce site to force all the traffic to that. So we'll go ahead and click force all traffic to primary domain. So that's all done. It's a pretty quick process. And then the only other kind of good practice here is if you go back to domains, right? We had reallyawesome.soapco.com is where our site is now. This was the original name of the site. So we're going to copy this address. We're going to go back to Tools. We're going to find Search and Replace, this guy right here. We're going to click Search and Replace and just paste the address that you copied off of the previous screen and just click Search. No search results found is good. If you did have search results in here, the next step would just be click Replace and then copy your domain name that you have. for us is reallyawesomessoapco.com. And you'll notice I just copied this out of the browser. We want this to say HTTPS. Okay, and then the other thing, if you have a trailing slash right here, just make sure you have it down here. You don't have to have or not have it. It doesn't matter, as long as if you don't have it up here, you don't have it down here either. If you do, make sure it's in both. That's all. So once you make sure that these are both accurate, again, if it came up and said that you did have any of this found on your site, it's just a good step to run this. So we'll run the replace. And then, as we would expect, since there was no results found prior, that there's none found now. It's pretty common for this to be an issue, and it's good to fix, because once you get done with your site, it might say that it's not secure because it's just pulling one thing from, you know, the old non-secured address. So now, if we check out the domain, you'll notice that now we have a little lock right here. So it is nice and secure. So that pretty much summarizes the connecting your domain to your hosting account portion of all of this. So we'll kind of pick up in the next step with kind of the next portions that we're going over to walk you through creating your site.